Hey guys, welcome to our first book reading. It is bright and early, 6:30. It's when I do some of my studying, and maybe my best work happens before everybody wakes up. Anyways, we're gonna get into reading, so I'll come back and do this every Monday. This book is the same book that we'll finish out. We'll read it together. It's Trash Man from no, yeah, Trash Man to Cash Man by Myron Golden. I tried to put a link inside the chats, but um, it's not working right now. So check in the comments below, and you should be able to have it. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'll zoom in just so you guys can see and read with me. Chapter 1. What are your chances of becoming rich? So, back in the 1980s, I sold insurance. At that time, the insurance company that I represented used Social Security Administration data that showed how the average person ends up after working a lifetime in America. I believe the statistics would be the same today, if not worse. You don't want to be on the bottom half of these statistics. Here are the statistics of 100 people working from 20 to age 65, a 45-year time period. One becomes rich, four become financially independent, five are still working, 28 are dead, and 62 are dead broke. Let's let's look at this according to percentages. So I've heard those stats before. Earl Nightingale speaks of something like that as well. Um, what's interesting is only one out of 100 becomes rich. Um, and I know in Earl Nightingale's things that he talks about, he pretty much describes how that is a choice, and we do have options. We don't have to just be um, what happens in the statistics, right? What that means is this: in America, 5% of the people make it financially, and 95% don't. That's an amazing statistic. There is a definite line that separates the haves from the have-nots when it comes to making it financially in America. 5% make it, 95% don't. That's scary when you think about it. It's even scarier when you read those numbers in a little different way. In the wealthiest country that has ever existed in the history of the world, you have 95% chance of not making it and only a 5% shot at making it. By the time you're done reading this book, however, you'll have the tools to become financially independent. You will have the wherewithal to teach your children and grandchildren these principles and change your family for generations. When you think about the fact that 5% of the people make it and 95% don't make it, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel afraid? Does it make you feel concerned? Does it make you feel angry? Does it make you feel slighted? Does it make you wonder which one of these two groups you are in? If it does, that's good. If it doesn't, then this probably book probably won't help you. So what's interesting about that, I feel excited about being the top 5% um, because I feel like it's not far away. Um, but it is interesting that there's 95% people who don't make it to be rich, and so the possibilities in the bottom part are to still be working or broke or whatever that scenario is. But to get to the top 5%, it's a unique scenario, and so it there's no anger involved for me. I don't feel slighted. I don't feel concerned. um, I don't feel afraid. I just want to know more about how those groups are separated, I think. Since you are reading this book, I'll assume that you're a person who has a desire to end up in the top 5% instead of the bottom 95%. If I have if I have you pegged right and you are one of the people who want to be in the 5%, I can tell you how to do it in two sentences. In fact, these two sentences are simple and so powerful that if you allow them, they will make you rich. Before we get into that, however, I want to make sure you are ready for your life change and that you are open to ideas that will challenge your thinking. That's exactly what this book will do. It's going to give you some great ideas to think about. It's going to give you some steps to take on your journey to becoming wealthy in the wealthiest country that has ever existed. I want you to realize from the beginning that nothing in this book is status quo, and it will challenge your thinking. But remember this: while these concepts are more than likely to be outside the box for you, consider this: if your way of thinking could make you rich, you would already be there or on your way there. With that in mind, let's take a look at the two sentence wealth formula. So that's a really important statement, in my opinion, which is that um, if our way of thinking, or my way, or your way of thinking could make you rich, you would already be there or you'd be on your way. And so consider that. And I think that concept in general has helped me to just have an open mind about different opportunities in life. And the more we think of it that way, then um, it's super helpful. All right. So out of 100 people who work from age 20 to age 65, these are the statistics of how they end up 45 years later. So there's a nice little graph there. The two sentence wealth formula is this: if you want to become wealthy, then you have to find out what the top 5% of people do financially and do the same thing. So I think that's a cool concept to be thinking about. That is that is sentence number one. The second sentence in the two sentence wealth formula is even more important than the first. You've got to find out what the bottom 95% are doing financially, and whatever else you do, don't do what they do. I think that's the part that's always hard, is because so many people are doing a certain thing. There's 95% of the people. And so you're going to be kind of the odd man out in a lot of areas and a lot of ways of being. The questions to ask then are: what do the top 5% do that those in the bottom 95% don't do? What do the bottom 95% do that the top 5% don't do? You need to study these two things in great detail. I would recommend that you become fanatical about finding out the difference between the habits of the rich and the habits of the poor. If you study both wealth and poverty, you can learn how to become wealthy. Write down what you learn and follow it to the letter. As simple and as funny as these two sentences might seem, most people never do either one. In the first part of this book, I'll show you how to make it a list and start studying wealth and poverty so that you can understand what the differences are. Then you will be able to make a conscious decision to become wealthy. Also, know that every financial principle I teach in this book is based on biblical principles. I understand that most people think that it's God's design for them to be broke and for them to struggle. I read in the Bible in Proverbs 10:22, which says, "The blessings of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he hadeth no sorrow with it." Well, if that's the case, the question I have for you is that your experience? The hand of the diligent maketh rich, but the slothful shall be under tribute. That's a principle. Diligence is more likely to bring riches, and laziness is more likely to bring poverty. All principles always work the same for everybody. Follow the principles that rich people follow and stop following the principles that poor people follow, and you will become rich. It's that simple. So the key is, anytime we see a principle, um, it's an important thing to find that, um, because of what principles do. If you could live your life with a foundation of principles, then it's a huge deal. Let's start the list. Get out a journal or a notebook and start writing. Make two lists. One will be what rich people do, and one will be what poor people do. Start paying attention to the differences between the habits of the rich and the habits of the poor. Start modeling the habits of the rich immediately. In the next chapter, we will begin to examine some of the differences between the habits of the rich and the habits of the poor. So at 6:45, we'll stop reading wherever we're at. and then we will talk a little bit, and then we'll take off. All right, so chapter two, the difference between the rich and the poor. Rich people understand how money works, poor people understand how to work for money. Let me say that again. Rich people understand how money works, but poor people only understand how to work for money. You may be wondering, Myron, what do you mean understand how money works? Let me explain the importance of financial principles and financial principle that you do not understand, and any financial principle you are not using is being used against you by someone who does does understand the principle. That's why it's so important to you to understand financial principles. Most people don't understand my financial principles. They don't understand leverage. They don't understand residual income. They don't understand passive income. They don't understand the time value of money. They don't understand the power of compound interest. Their lack of knowledge about how most financial principles work is the reason they are broke. Let's look at some financial principles and how they work. Remember, they work for you if you understand them and use them, and against you if you don't. The magic of compound interest. Rich people understand the time value of money. They understand the value of compound interest. So rich people understand the time value of money, and they understand the value of compound interest. Einstein, who is considered to be one of the brightest people of the last century, said, "Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe." And when you think about that statement, if compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe, you need to understand it. If you don't understand it, someone who does will use the most powerful financial force in the universe against you. You can see how this could easily have a catastrophic effect on your financial situation. Einstein, the same guy who discovered the E equals mc squared and unlocked the secrets of the atom bomb, said that compound interest is more powerful than the force that results in the automatic explosion. The atomic explosion. If that is true, no wonder so many people end up broke. Institutions that understand compound interest are using the force against you financially. Let me show you how. You put your money in a bank account that will give you less than 3%, sometimes even less than 1% interest on your money. Then you get a credit card through the bank and you borrow your own money from the bank at 18 to 24%. No wonder most people are broke. They loan their money to the bank at 0 to 3% interest and borrow it back at 18 to 24%. To see the effect this could have on you financially over a working lifetime, let's use the rule of 72. The rule of 72 is a formula that measures compound interest, also known as the time value of money. Here's how it works. Take your rate of return and divide it by the 72, the number 72. The answer tells you how long it will take your money to double at that rate of return. For example, 72 divided by 3 equals 24. That tells you that if you are getting a 3% return on your money will double every 24 years. If you reverse that equation and you're getting 24% on your money, then your money will double every 3 years. That is why your bank is getting richer at your expense. They know this formula and you don't. Now you can clearly see why most people never get rich. You must commit to getting your money working for you at the highest rate of return possible. By the way, rate of return simply means interest. That's why poor people are poor and rich people are rich. Rich people know this system doesn't work to poor people. Rich people know this system doesn't work to poor people's advantage. Now let's continue looking at the differences between the practices of the rich and the practices of the poor. Don't work for money, have money work for you. Poor people only understand how to work for money. What do I mean? Many people are hardworking individuals who have a job that they either classify as a job or a bad job, a good job or a bad job. Let me tell you, a job is a job. Some jobs pay more money than others, but it doesn't change the fact that you are trading time for money. The reason people work for money is that they believe that time is money. Rich people know that time is money, time is infinitely more valuable. Rich people know that time is not money. Time is infinitely more valuable than money. So we'll stop right there and put a little marker. Let me see how I should mark it here. So in this first section, we're separating out the two things, rich and poor, and looking at some of the different kinds of differences between the rich and poor. And what I thought was interesting, or what I find interesting, is the compound idea, the idea that we would put our money in the bank at 0 to 3% interest, possibly gaining that, but then which would take us 24 years before we could gain it back, right? And and then in, the opposite though for banks is that they're going to loan it out at 18 to 24%. Um, even if those rates are off, at any rate, the gap is still the same, and it's just an interesting concept, and it does make starts making me think like, how do I move my money to working for me or gaining interest as much as possible. In the previous chapter, it was really about establishing. In chapter one, it's really about establishing the two rules. Um, the idea that we will have to figure out what 95% of the people do, um, and don't do those things, and then figure out what the 5% people are doing and start doing those things. All right, you guys, it was fun being able to just get on here and read. Check the comments below. Myron has a challenge coming up um, next week. See if you can get in that challenge. We'll talk to you soon.